Welcome to Leading Church with Pastor Steve Kelly. We're aiming to create a space to talk through issues that all leaders in ministry face. We want to do it in authentic and transparent conversation that helps you as a leader feel connected and not alone. In today's podcast, we'll be having a conversation with Steve Kelly and Josh Kelly, his son. Their example of working together in ministry while maintaining healthy family dynamics is admired by many. So we'll dig in to how they get on, how they discuss things, and how they do ministry and life together. You're going to love as we dig in, as we get them talking about how they manage to make life and ministry happen as father and son working together in the same church. Well, here we are today. We have you, Steve and Sharon. It's great to have you back again, Sharon.
Thank you.
And we also have Josh, the son of you two, with us.
Why did you laugh when you said
our middle child. He's the middle child. So
he sure is.
Yeah, what can you say? Well, today we're going to talk about all things ministry again, about ministry within family and leading church with family and how you take the call of God and how you're going to develop that. And
force it on your
children.
Force it on your children. Make your children into something. No, we're just talking about leading church and actually about doing family well, and actually where that leads and how that goes. So thanks, Josh, for joining us.
You're welcome.
It's great to have you with us. And as usual, it's great to have Steve Kelly with us, and who will be at all these podcasts. So,
okay.
Because this is your podcast.
It is Leading Church with Steve Kelly.
It is Leading Church with Steve Kelly. It's what it says on the screen here. So
I'm here.
So we're talking about family, and you were born in Australia, Josh. And
yes, I was.
And
thanks for reminding me.
That's right. It's a great start to life, really, when you think about it. And you were exiled out of Australia because your mum and dad decided to pack up and rip you out of Australia and send you
He
to
didn't
America.
have a prison record.
He did. He did or didn't?
Didn't.
No, he did not. That's good to
You
hear.
need one to get to Australia.
That's right.
Yes, the first 3 years you were going to move back.
I was.
Yes.
Although the hot baths and electricity were nice when we came over here.
And actually having television and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the call of God. So do you remember when you left Australia to come to America, did you feel like Mum and Dad, Steve and Sharon's call was your call? I mean, how did that come about?
Well, I was 8, so I was just, I think, more excited than any. It wasn't a really, I think it was harder for Alyssa because she was 11.
Right.
Yeah.
So for us, it was more of an exciting adventure. We had best friends that lived, the Hinkstons, that lived next door.
Right next
and I remember
door.
that being...
That was a moment.
Yeah, tough. But because I was 8, I think it was... I remember going to the airport and hoping the accent was going to sound more different than it was. So like the disappointment of the American accent not being more different. So I remember that.
That's funny.
That's
Yeah.
funny. I don't
That's the first I've
understand
ever heard
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish we moved to Germany or something, but
I remember our first weekend, we got stuck in Chicago on our way over here.
the snowstorm.
And Josh, we were in a hotel for the weekend in Chicago, and he threw up the whole weekend. I do remember
did?
that. Yeah, he
I
got a
remember
stomach thing or whatever. So
Wow.
that was exciting.
I remember flying into the airport and seeing the people wave to us when we came off the plane in Norfolk. I don't know if I'm making that up, but I feel like I remember that.
Okay, yeah.
So I remember
well,
that.
that would
That would have
greeting
been
us.
Robert Cameron and Seth.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And Chris Elliott,
And
maybe.
Chris Elliott.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then
3 people.
I remember the first Sunday service, which was very odd to me. I was old enough to remember, obviously, the church we came from, and then coming to now Wave Church, which was for
Then Church of the Redeemer. Yeah.
and being pretty terrified as an 8-year-old watching flags and being flown and people
Spirit dances.
sprinting, sprinting around the auditorium. So I remember that.
Oh,
Yes.
So let's jump back a little bit in time. And so, Steve and Sharon, how did you take the kids, your children, along the journey with you? Because Josh is one of 3. And so how did you take your kids along the journey of just ministry and life? Like, what were some of the things about that you, looking back, you thought, wow, these were things we did well?
well, I honestly, I think one of the things that we really do thank God for was, working with Brian and Bobby. They really showed us to take your kids with you.
Right.
And they modeled that really well.
Right.
And so we learned from that. And so every year we had a pastors conference in October. It was always the same week as Josh's birthday.
Oh, wow.
And so we went, now we're going to be at the Pastors Conference. And back in those days, we took the kids with us because it was school holiday. And is that right? Because the kids were there.
They came out of school.
We took them out of
Yeah.
school. Well, they're in a Christian school.
We made it just a great thing for the whole family.
And we made it a family vacation.
Yeah.
Little did he know that we weren't able to have a birthday party for him on his birthday because we were up 4 hours up the coast.
Oh,
So
wow.
we just decided that we're not going to be married to a date. We're going to make sure we celebrate, but it doesn't have to be like Josh's birthday is October the 15th.
15, 14, 15.
I said that on purpose.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever.
No, my brother's birthday is October the 15th. Yours is the 14th.
Easy to forget your.
Yeah, it
that's
is.
right. It's easy, very easy to do.
Close. That's too funny. But I remember
Probably
going,
because we didn't celebrate the birthday parties.
you
That's
actually,
Forgotten.
but we had 2 birthdays. We had a birthday cake for him at the state conference, and we had one with all his friends. But we learnt then what matters is you celebrate, and you know there was no option for us. We were going to that, and so I think things like that, taking your family with
Yeah,
you.
and I think even when the kids were super little, when we had 1 and then 2, like Steve would get invited to do these youth camps, and we'd all go. We'd just pack the kids up, and we all would be at the camp, you know. And I
Do you remember any of those camps?
I do. I actually do.
Do you?
I also think one of the things I'm thankful for is that inevitably taught us to not get caught up with stuff that I notice other people get caught up with dates and where I think one is just learning how to be easygoing and laid back, and also learning how to honor and celebrate in creative ways as well. But I'm thankful for that because I now don't get caught up with dates and things like that. But yet at the same time, showing us that you can go over and beyond in honoring and celebrating whatever that thing may be.
Like anniversaries.
Yeah.
I mean, they're important. We ought to not forget that. And like major church events that conflict with a family calendar.
Yes.
But
they just don't. It's not even a thing.
No.
It's
Yeah, that's true.
I haven't celebrated Brooke's anniversary in 4 years.
Well, our anniversary is always when we moved to America, Thanksgiving.
Right.
So we're not going to
Oh,
go away
that's
from
right.
our kids. So we just
we
went.
could, but we don't.
Probably should have been. That's right.
No, but what I'm trying to say is I'm thankful for it. I think it taught us.
Right.
It taught us a valuable lesson.
Yeah, I mean, you don't. Yeah, the world doesn't revolve around us, any of us, really. You know.
Right. I mean, in church life, sometimes the church makes the kids feel like, you know, they've got to behave a certain way because they're the pastor's kids or whatever. How did you work that with your kids?
We were not big on the church side. Just, you know, you're our children, and you carry the name Kelly, and
That means more to
That
us
me-
than
yeah.
pastors' kids.
and we didn't,
Wow.
you know, I mean, did they get pulled up in church by people at times? Yes, and a lot of times Steve would just have a chat to people and say, look, they're my kids, let me
I
discipline
raise them, you don't.
But to us, it was you behave a certain way because you're our kids, not because we're pastors.
Yeah, that's
and
great.
And that was a big thing for us, wasn't it?
Now, there were some of the more memorable moments is like going to Hillsong Conference, where
I was going to say.
Yeah.
I got to be careful because a Hillsong Conference is exceptional, world class. But some of the kids programs they were doing, our kids didn't really. What's the right way of saying it, Josh? You didn't care for it.
Yeah, we just wanted deeper teaching. You know?
That's not true.
think
And these
they're
are
probably
early
more
days
spiritual.
because this conference grew so fast.
We wanted to go to the aquatic center.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go
So they
swim.
would be missing
They
out
would
of
just-
classes, or not
yeah,
classes,
yeah.
but
I was going to bring that
Sessions.
up, Pastor Steve, because one of my children was caught up with
Yeah,
your
sure.
children as a
Sorry,
result
I'm
of that.
sorry
you
about
know,
that,
so
Mark.
Well,
Sorry about
ended
our
up going
kids.
missing in action.
Yeah, but that's more pastors' kids having fun at a
I
conference.
was
it
spoken to by Brian, who said our Hillsong executive have spent an hour talking about the Kelly, Dion, Kean, Alcorn,
Yeah.
I don't want
Hopkins.
to,
Not good.
Hopkins. And I remember,
Well, no, I was in that meeting having to resolve it.
but no, seriously, like one time they were looking for a band called Leland that was supposed to be performing somewhere, and they're out playing with Josh and Sam playing soccer, and you know Joyce Meyer
We woke up
lost
Joyce
a lot
Meyer.
of sleep. and other things and shenanigans. But you know what? I
welcome
think
to
we've all
life.
been, and it was Brian who taught us, foolishness is bound in the heart of a child.
Right.
But the rod of correction will drive it far from him. But in other words, it just simply means don't put this perfection parent pressure on you. Children are bound to do foolish things.
Right.
And now correct them, discipline them. And there was never about being a pastor's kid. It was always about, well, you carry the name Kelly, and we lived and valued that name. And I remember
we never felt like we were being disciplined because we were pastors' kids. It was because it was our parents.
Yeah. I used to say, I love you no matter what you do. I just want other people to love you.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, and boy, did we get Well, I did. I got disciplined.
Yeah, I mean, maybe people, sometimes I guess as pastors we can feel that pressure that our kids have to be or need to be perfect. And it's impossible. They can't be. They're humans. They're imperfect humans being raised by imperfect humans,
Yeah.
So I think too, people have to take pressure off themselves, This parenting gig is hard for everyone, regardless of whether you're pastoral or not. And sometimes in ministry you can feel it a little more, and I just think, guys, enjoy the journey with your kids because it just goes so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, all your kids are in ministry.
Yeah.
And doing exceptionally well and breaking through. So what were some of the things that you guys learned and put into place that helped with some of that outcome?
Family vacations are massive. You want to talk about that, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, we always knew, and a lot of times it was attached to a trip, like going to a church conference and then visiting family, and then we always knew there was going to be just an intentional family vacation. We had a lot of fun, which I think even the word fun is, I'm thankful for growing up, is we always made sure we had fun.
Yeah.
We enjoyed, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of not fun moments, but family vacations are some of our fondest memories.
Yeah.
And we see that as growing up in, I guess, church
And that
ministry.
was intentional.
Yeah.
That if we and I remember as they got older, we'd say, okay, you can bring a friend.
Yeah.
Because as they got older, they still wanted to come, but they wanted, like summertime when we go away here was back in Australia, their winter. And so, and they didn't want to be away from their friends. So we go, you can all bring a friend, or not all of them all at once, but we let them.
Yeah, and I think too, we honestly didn't raise them to go into ministry from our pressure from us. That was never part of the paradigm. It was, we want you to accept Christ and love. Our parenting was, may we point you in a direction to encounter Jesus personally, profoundly, powerfully, and then pursue what he has for your life.
Yeah.
And be planted in the local church. Have a love for the local church. So whether they chose to be business people or whatever, we're believers and we're in church. That was that was what all we ever thought.
I remember just not too long ago, we just celebrated Sharon's 60th birthday. I'm still in my 40s.
That would just
Benjamin
be
Button.
weird. That would just be weird.
Yeah, it would be weird.
He's been in his 40s for 20 years.
But it was kind of fun because, like, Sharon and I are very reluctant to take too much credit for our kids. We always are quick to say, look, they made good choices. And yet someone, when our three kids spoke at Sharon's 60th birthday, I had several people say, how did you do that? I heard them speak and be so honoring of Sharon, their mother. What did you do? And I gave my usual answer. Well, it wasn't us. And I said, no. One person just grabbed me and said, no, tell me, what did you do? And they forced me to go beyond the surface answer. And I said, well, look, honestly, and I was thinking about it. I went, as pastors, some people might look at what we have, how we've raised our kids, but I don't think a lot of people, and I mean this not just about pastors, parents, they say, what did you do to raise your kids? They all love God, love his house. And I actually don't think a lot of parents fully comprehend the price that's paid to do that. So, I think we live this comfortable lifestyle where we got fully behind our kids. Josh was into soccer. and was good at it. Alyssa was into cheerleading.
Sam was into cheerleading.
Sam was baseball, then soccer. But they're all we all got behind their passions. We never put pressure on them to feel like they needed to do ministry as what we did.
So you're saying you put, when you say pay the price, you're talking about keep the focus?
Well, no, yeah. So my thought is this, that it got very complicated as they got older and were playing, like Alyssa's school won the national private school cheerleading competition in Florida. Josh's team went down to New Orleans and played in the indoor national soccer championship. Every week they were at soccer practice, they were at cheerleading practice, they were at baseball practice, and yet we taught them things like community group Bible study is non-negotiable, church is non-negotiable. But that had us running around crazy.
I mean, it's exhausting.
And
it's a lot of work to raise family.
But parents will use the out of church life and Bible study to pursue and that's where, when I say not everybody's willing to pay that price, I always say you'll never know what it cost us. Do you know what I mean? And I only talk about it. I only talk about it now. Because I still don't want to take the credit. There's some great parents who haven't done anything that has caused their kids who still made their own choices.
Right.
And so I'm always reluctant to take too much credit. I'm scared. Yeah. And I don't want to be that expert on this either because, we raised our kids as best we knew how.
Yeah, but we made mistakes too. And I think for Josh in particular, there was a community group leader who was instrumental.
Yeah.
Yes.
In his life.
Josh Foy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because we get asked sometimes too, and I think obviously mom and dad being authentic and the same on and off the stage. I think for me personally, when they say they didn't put pressure on us to do church ministry, they really did not do that. Even the conversation when I went from private school to public school, there was a important conversation that they had with me about, if we see you start to act a fool, you're going to go back to private school. But it wasn't, hey, because you're a pastor's kid. It was because you're a Kelly kid and because you're a Christian, a young man, and follows Jesus. And I think them counting the cost for us in the sense of we always knew church wasn't before us because they made it work for us to be at soccer practice, if that makes sense. Right. And when we got to high school, it was 4 nights a week.
It was.
And I was away a lot, not traveling a lot. So making that work was and so them doing that, I think, helped show us that they really did believe in us and not just if you do church ministry, if that makes sense. And I think for me, if they pushed church ministry on me, it would have delayed me having my encounter with, or ministry God encounter, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And yet, the truth be told, when Josh came and said, look, I've been running from a call of God, I'm called to preach. Right. I remember the first thought was, I won't get to go to his soccer games. And I so loved that. And we miss that to this day. Now we've got grandkids, so we're looking forward to revisiting all that. Right. But I promise you this, your kids grow up so fast. Right. And, when you're a young couple just listening to this podcast, we heard that and water off a duck's back.
Yeah.
We didn't fully comprehend how fast that window was. Yeah. And I see pastors babysitting their kids away. And I think you should have time together. I think you should have date nights. I think you should. But I see them almost wishing their kids, seeing kids almost as an interruption to their ministry.
Yeah. Wow, yeah. Not.
And they're not. When we had fun guest speakers, we always took the kids with us. But there's some guest speakers, we'd never take the kids. I didn't want them to be bored. Right. But I remember one of my favorite moments is Ray Bevan. Remember that, Josh? And he stuck a shrimp up his nose.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Or something, yeah.
And
was covered in hot sauce.
In hot sauce.
Oh, my gosh.
And Ray's he's one of the funniest guys you'll ever meet. He's a little Welsh leprechaun.
Yeah, super cool. Fun.
I was going to say, I do like when you talk about it on a deeper level, though, of even, because there's been times when you've said it in church of the importance of raising your kids in church. And I think sometimes people think that we didn't play sports like other kids. And I'm like, no, you guys made
at the highest level.
Made it all. Yes.
That you could play.
Yes.
And I remember pastor friends saying, "Oh, never do that travel soccer." And well, we did travel soccer, and it was really hard to manipulate, like to to be at the games and to figure out what the weekend. I mean, I remember going from church and I'd be racing to the soccer field and getting changed and on the sideline. I mean, it's
and
a
we had
lot.
Sunday morning and Sunday night service.
Yeah, but it's like this is what we do. If you have children,
and that's the price I'm talking about.
Yeah,
because I think too is when your kids love something, be a part of it. You know, you know, Sam loved music and guitar, and even with someone like Sam, I remember Sam coming and saying, "Mum, I think I want to join the church choir, but I have to wait till a couple months till I'm 15." And I remember thinking, "Wow, okay."
We didn't know that
we
was
hadn't
a
even really heard
requirement.
him sing.
Wait, you got to be 15?
Yeah. But even just watching that evolve for him, and just cheering him on, and he got voice lessons and. Being in music stores, which is the furthest thing from Steve and I,
I've never been in a music store
and
in
we're
my
like,
life.
what in the world? But it became, we just enjoyed it and loved it because he did,
Right.
And I think they're important things too. Sometimes we just want our kids to love what we love and do what we do. It's like, no, this is a unique little human with giftings and, be a part of their world. Don't let them run the show. I'm not saying that. But I think too.
Josh tried to run the show.
Just, just getting in their world and loving what they love.
So I think one of the other things that I've noticed about you, Steve and Sharon, is that when church stuff happen, when the not so nice stuff about church happens, it doesn't seem that ever seemed to have hit the kids. Did you notice when stuff wasn't quite wonderful in church life?
I mean, I think the older you get, because pastors' kids aren't dumb, so they can, I think they can discern some things. But then the older we got, they were discerning on when they brought us in certain contexts.
Oh, okay.
But what I'm thankful for is they never leaked any bitterness, or it was always honoring and always, how are we going to handle this? And because sometimes it means it's a family that I was friends with, and they've left the church or things like that, and so at a young age, they were very protective. And then as we got older, I think there was
age appropriate,
but always honoring, which I'm, even as I became an adult, watching how they handle those situations is probably one of the reasons I'm still here. Even though some of the times I joke about, I'm like, just tell everybody how terrible the person is. But they never did. And so it was, and now I look back and I'm really thankful for it, because it's just always, it's always been honor, if that makes sense.
But you never got bitter, or like friends left you?
For sure. But I was able to have conversations with them about how to navigate and process those things.
He'd go, what happened to these guys? And why aren't they here? And because he was friends with one of the kids, and we didn't want to go, well, they left and they're just losers, and because we didn't want that residue on them. So we would just go, hey, people have got a right to make their choices, and they've made a choice, and we didn't want them to carry, and we were hurt, we were disappointed,
Totally.
but we didn't want them to carry that.
Yeah, and again, I think as pastors, it's, you have to have people in your world that you can download that stuff to, and it doesn't end up being dumped on your kids, because they can't handle it. They don't have the emotional capacity, and they're biased to you. They love you, and so it's like, I'm a big believer in boundaries, man. I just am like, okay, don't put all this stuff on your kids. They don't need that. They'll figure life out as they get older.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you guys are really good at friends. Like you create a network of friends across the world, and but also locally. Like it's not like many people have said over the years that I've heard, and I think you've heard as well, as you don't have friends in ministry, and nothing could be further from
we were
the truth.
both taught that.
That's
Yeah,
right.
By a pastor, not by
No.
Brian, but in the church we got saved in, that was the MO of the senior pastor, and it's not because he was taught that.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's not like he was
exactly.
evil or bad.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can't survive without friends, honestly. And, even we've got great friends that you can talk about the lows of life and end up laughing hysterically just because, we've all been there, done that. Life hits, And I think that's worth more than any therapy session, when you can just sit with friends and go,
it's cheaper.
Do you understand it? Yeah, we do now. And then challenge you and go, okay, sucks. How are you going to respond? What does Christ compel you to do? And you're like, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody who's been in ministry for any length of time are going to have some war stories and some scars.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And yet we had friends that would let us talk about it, but then said, well, okay, what are you going to do? Shouldn't have happened. It did.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to put on your big boy pants. You got to
exactly.
you got to be okay with this. And I remember also one of the most significant times in my life was, as we all do have disappointments in people, and this for me was probably the ultimate of all my ministry life, probably the ultimate betrayal of something that happened just in my world on team. And I remember one of my very dear friends who loves me. We were in Hawaii on a vacation, and he just couldn't stop talking about it. And I finally looked at him, and he's upset for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at him. I said, hey mate, I'm on vacation, and I'm not taking that person with me on this vacation. I want to enjoy this. I didn't fly all over here to relive. So I ended up helping my friend help something that, and that was a great moment for him and for me.
Right.
I'm not taking that guy with me on my vacation. I'm not going to allow this to be poisoned. We're going to enjoy this time. And then that night we're having dinner, we're laughing our heads off with friends. And it takes a long time to build lasting relationships.
Right.
And I see people burn friendships, and they're more obsessed with being right.
Yeah.
And I always go, what do you want this relationship to look like in 5 or 10 years? And you can be in the moment, really dig in and confrontational. And I'm a strong confrontational leader, but I like to think, I also think about where I want to see this person in 5 years and not feel a knot and twist it in my stomach.
Which is probably one of the things that they modeled for us, is how to have friends in ministry and have fun. Because you guys talk about this, I think about the times that we'd go travel and meet up with families or meet up at a conference, and there was always the hanging out after, and we would watch them hang out with those friends and just laugh hysterically for 3 hours catching up. And now I see it in my life with some of their kids. Yeah. And we catch up, and then we just laugh.
Well, and that's wonderful. Like the Dion kids, we're talking about some of those families, like the Alcorns. Yeah. And we don't see each other, but I don't know, once a year, if that. And yet these guys pick up, they haven't seen those kids for 5 years. And the friendship, and they pick up right where they left off.
Right. Yeah. Now let's do a little turn, and all your kids are in ministry on staff at a church, and most of them, I mean, you've got Josh and Alyssa and Jared, who's son-in-law, they're all on staff here. So how did that happen? You just created jobs for the family? Is that what it's about? How did that happen?
Well, firstly, there's a great book called In Praise of Nepotism. It's a
what
deep
not
book.
to do.
No, it actually talks about the power of generations. And like the Rockefellers, some of the families that have just gone on and passed on
so that's
generational.
Yeah.
I'm
is
serious.
Right? Yeah.
It is a real book.
Yeah.
And it shows
I wish we got paid like the Rockefellers.
But no, and that's, people would say, you got to have the name Kelly to get a job at Wave Church. Well, that's not true. But we actually saw on Sam's life the desire to be a worship leader. We saw a gift of leadership on Josh's life. So we wanted Josh to go to college. We wanted all our kids to go to college. Alyssa went to Old Dominion University, was doing an MBA?
Math degree, then an
Math
MBA.
degree, and then an MBA. So she ended up working part-time in the church in the accounts department, working for Josh Kicker. But she was an employee to our general manager. So she wouldn't get any special treatment from us at all. And then Josh, when he went to college, he became part-time our youth pastor. Took him a lot longer to get through college because he was working, I mean, how many days a week?
Secular job.
A secular job.
Pouring concrete.
Pouring concrete.
Great
and then
days.
Gosh, Jared did 4-year degree at Old Dominion University, and then did 2 years at Wave Leadership College, because the degree in Old Dominion University wasn't a theological seminary, education. And Josh did that. Josh actually ended up getting from SEU, what was it?
PhD in
Is that a post-hole digger? Is that what it is?
Or hopeless and
PhD.
defenseless. Now, what was it?
Biblical studies.
Biblical studies.
Biblical
studies. And that matters to me.
Right.
And so for Jared, after 6 years of being a student, I mean, it would have been the easiest thing. But I went and I saw it. There's a lot to this, but let me unpack this part. I rang a business guy in our church and I said, this guy's got no corporate experience and work experience and I don't want his first experience just to be on a church staff.
Okay.
That is one of the biggest mistakes I think people make is, they have no context. They're the ones that actually get quite disillusioned because they're trying to figure out the realities. So there's a corporate world. So the thing that Jared said was, oh my gosh, I see all these people who are volunteering at church who work where he works. And he can't believe, he knows the hours they work, the days they work. And he found himself going, I can't believe you serve so much in church, knowing what you do. And Jared appreciating that was one of the best things. There's nothing wrong with, I think, the Bible says God's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Very good.
And so God looks at you, he looks at you generationally.
Yep.
There's, the children of the upright shall be blessed. So long as we didn't force that, and we saw that. So there's nothing wrong with being put on third base, to use the baseball analogy, as long as you can hit a triple. So if we put them in a position of leadership that was beyond their credibility, beyond their depth, and it was just because they're our kids, that would create problems for them and a resentment in church culture.
Yeah.
So we were never, ever going to do that. We said to our youth pastor when they were younger, hey, you can call them up, you can challenge them. It's not like our kids are untouchable. It takes a village to raise a family.
It does.
And we need your wisdom and input. So there's some of the things I think, at least. What would you say?
Yeah, I think we didn't. I don't think we raised them with this end in mind, honestly.
Right.
So we kind of have stumbled on it as they've come to us and said, we feel called to this. And then again, I've kind of said, you guys are going to have to maybe work harder than others, you know, because people may look at, and don't get mad at that. Just go, you know what, this is the proving ground.
Right.
And like Josh, we just had Devoted Women's Conference, and Josh was in the parking lot directing traffic, and I went up to him and said, thank you for doing that. He said, of course. And I'm like, yeah, I hope all of us would, whatever needs to happen. We've never arrived. We're never too big to do anything. If we love the church, we're servants of Jesus, and we'll do whatever it takes. So I think we've worked really hard.
Yeah, we have.
For them to understand that, hopefully, to be grounded. You know what I mean? You just don't want kids that are like, I don't know, who are you? My dad fills an auditorium of 5,000 three times on a Sunday.
My daddy has a bigger church than yours.
Yeah, you just...
And that is honestly, sadly, a lot of the pastors as well.
You just don't want that. At the end of the day, we are servants of Jesus, and we are here to build his church. And so I think we just tried really hard. And then acknowledge, yes, they really have a call to ministry. And
then, like with Sam, I mean, he worked part-time at the church. He worked in our worship department, and we had him work under our worship pastor. We'd probably do that a little differently with Sam because of that situation, but no regrets. And then Sam ended up being full-time. And then he went, look, there is a bit of a shadow cast unintentionally. And I think Sam wanted to kind of find his voice. Yeah. And so
He's
married this beautiful girl who was artistic and married, a prominent pastor's daughter. And now they're working over there, and we're so proud of him. And that Sam's doing things we couldn't get him to do.
Yeah, and I think ultimately for all of us, we want to raise our children to pursue what God has put in their heart.
Yeah,
and that's what you want them to be able to say. I just know God has called me to this, because that's what happened to us. We knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that we were supposed to be here. You want that for them. That has to be their own personal encounter, because ministry life is hard. And
it is. But I think, sorry.
No,
I was going to say, I think if there was any pastor's kid diva, is that a word, divaness? In us,
something.
What I'm thankful for is, like, we grew up in a family, and it's the same with our staff culture, where that doesn't fly.
Right.
So if we started getting, being little divas, even before we're on staff, where it was like, no, that's not how we do things. And then even what I'm thankful for is, and I think it's helped build credibility with our staff is when we started. I mean, we were serving in middle school and high school when we were playing soccer and all the rest of it, because it's just what we, not because we're pastors' kids, it's what we do. But I think, well, I'm losing my train of thought. But even when we came on staff, there was, if we tried to go around our oversight and go talk to mom or dad, we would get rebuked.
Right.
Whereas that's not how we do things. You go to your oversight. Oh, that's what I was going to say. And I think one of the things that helped too is you allowed our staff to promote us rather than you promote us.
Good.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was like, let's earn our stripes and prove that we, let's have the youth pastor say, hey, we think Josh needs to preach, rather than, hey, I think my son needs to preach.
Right.
Right.
Which I'm thankful for. And I think it helped us earn respect
Yeah.
with
I
our
mean,
team.
you are in a significant role here now in our Great Neck campus with Pastor Steve. So how does that work? Like, working for Dad, how does working for Dad work out?
Working for Daddy.
Perhaps you might use a different word, but
Oh
yeah.
my God.
I mean, I don't know. I think
I mean, it's got to be at times where, like, the family, like,
Okay, let's talk
familiarity. Like, how do you deal
about
with that?
I mean, there are.
I think, I'd love to hear what you want to say, but I think what's helpful, I'm thankful that he's a strong leader. So there's that line of, wearing the two hats, and then there's even the line of honoring and being over familiar, where if I cross it, I find out.
Yeah.
And then I've got to be humble enough and willing to, okay, I'll cross that line, and willing to honor my dad and honor my boss and honor my pastor. And so part of it's learning as you go.
Yeah.
But I think I have to be more intentional about honoring my pastor, who's also my dad, in the work environment. And some of my favorite voicemails are from Dad, where it's like, this isn't your father calling, this is your boss. Those are fun. I'm curious to hear what you say, but I think inevitably you've also taught me how to do that well with our staff and anybody who's over, who is my leader, but also with you.
Well, I was going to say, because you are so honoring, and some people think, well, of course he is. But it's not that I need it, because I'm not insecure and I'm not demanding it, and it's not that Josh needs to do it. Honoring of Sharon and I, he doesn't need to do it. We don't need it, but the people need it. It's helping people understand you honor your leaders. You know what I mean? And it's a culture you create in your church, which sadly today is being that there's so much attacking leaders and leadership, and so we're not sitting there going, I remember two significant moments that I think about. Alyssa was just close to perfect in all this. Josh wasn't. I said that just for you, by the way. I remember I said to Jared, when I said to him, I want you to come on a trip with us to Uganda. And we took the kids with us on this trip.
Yeah.
And I said, but I want you, Jared, to come. And I tell you, I want you to come. I want you to be the guy that takes the photographs and the video. And so you got a job. I'm not flying you to Uganda to be with your girlfriend.
I'm so glad you're sharing this story, by the way.
And I said, so I need you to just help me and capture moments. And you're there to serve what we need in Uganda. So you're going to be like, I guess, an armor bearer kind of thing. And Jared understands that culture. And so on the plane, I just went back. It was so funny that I went back from our seat to talk to them. And I just looked at Jared. I said, hey, buddy. And I think at the time I had an injured foot or something. And I said, can you do me a favor? Could you go get me a Diet Coke from the air stewardess? And he looked at me and goes, oh, no. And he goes, Alyssa, you do it. And I just went, now, it sounds so funny, but I went, no, this is a training moment. I said, Jeff, remember why you're here.
Right.
You're not here to be with Alyssa. You're here to capture what and he went, oh. And it was one of the most powerful, and the same thing.
No, I laughed because I just pictured Jared saying no.
Yeah. And then
living
Josh,
to tell the story.
You picked me up when I was driving to and from Seaboard.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite stories, because he gets to the guy. Now he's picking Dad up. He's driving Dad to Seaboard.
Which is one of our church locations.
Yeah, Seaboard Road's another campus in the south side of Virginia Beach. Thank you, Josh. And so he picks me up, and I don't like talking. I don't like music.
On your way to go preach.
On the way to go preach.
And life you do.
Yeah, no, I do. I do like toy. Yeah,
I'm glad to clarify that.
I would, to be honest with you, and I like air conditioning. I like it cold. So Josh gets in. He's driving me. First thing he does is turn the radio up real loud, and then I put the air conditioning down, and he looked at me, and I turned the radio down. And he turned the air conditioning up and turned.
Okay. I don't remember the air conditioning part, but I did.
It was the air
volume
conditioning.
up.
I remember.
I just wanted to pray over you.
And so I just looked at him and I went, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing?" And he goes, "Well, I don't want this." And I said, "Would you treat a guest speaker like that?" And he looked at me and went, "Oh." I said, "I'm not your dad today." Now, understand, I'm his dad. So when we're family, we try to be very deliberate about family vacation and family
dinners,
that
family
we
time. We just have
don't-
fun, and we're not.
Now, our life is church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So please don't think we say we're not talking about church. It is our life,
Right.
but we're deliberate about, making
great times
family
together.
fun.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
That's all I was going to say.
No, yeah, and I think there's a huge part that I also need when I honor him. I think I need it because it helps me not become overfamiliar.
Right.
It helps me remain in that place of it's not just dad.
But we've had
is.
some funny knockdown, drag out fights on a golf course
Yeah.
where we'll disagree with each other's scores or I'll say things deliberately to tick him off. And that's just dad and son having fun.
It is. It's not fun sometimes. But even when we argue or have tense conversations in meetings in the office, one, I'm careful about when I maybe challenge.
We've never had those, have we?
Never.
Yeah, right.
But obviously, I'm careful of when I challenge certain
Right.
things. I'm only gonna do that in certain contexts because some people just can't
Yeah.
understand. And they also even can't understand sometimes if you're strong back to me. They think, oh, you're feeling certain. I'm like, no, that's my boss having a strong conversation with me, and I'm fine with that. And even learning that line of challenging, earning the credibility to challenge maybe an idea or
Right.
opinion, and then learning when, no, I said no.
And let me just say, for me, I really care about that next generation, and he's leading that next generation.
Right.
So I'd be a fool, and that's one of probably the things I've had to learn is keep making room for another younger generation. So
Right.
I go, Josh, why don't the musicians dress better? And he goes, well, Dad, they dress really cool. You just don't know what cool is anymore.
If you had it your way, they'd be in a 3-piece suit and tie. Be tuxedo Sunday.
They just iron their clothes, brush their hair. That would
I
be
think
nice.
They look great.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I go to Sharon, is music too loud? She's
No,
never too
never
loud.
loud enough. Love it
You know,
loud.
so, but I want to keep reaching another generation.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm letting them influence, and sometimes I've gone kicking and screaming on them, haven't I?
Yeah.
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 That's good.
And that we should bring into another podcast in the future for sure, because some of this dynamic about how you two connect and interact on team, and I've seen some great stuff happening as a result of that. I've seen, Steve, you moved your opinion and reinvent yourself, and I've seen Josh's influence just increase, and the way Josh has handled himself in church, where he's understood, to your credit, you've understood you've got to do the work to win people, to get that, what you would call, Steve, the second anointing, the anointing from the people, not just the anointing from the Father, but the anointing from the people, where the people go,
Are people singing about you?
right,
Yeah.
David.
that's right.
Yeah.
No one's singing. I don't hear a song.
If no one's singing, you ain't going to make it.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And that's one of your great teachings. So we will hopefully look forward to doing that again. Thanks, Sharon, for being with us, and
you.
Steve,
Always
and
good.
Josh.
Thank you, Mark.
Any last comments, Josh, you want to make,
No, I just want to reiterate, I think you have a fantastic voice.
He's got a great face for radio.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got a great face for radio, that's right. Amen. Well, thanks for joining us with our Leading Church with Pastor Steve Kelly podcast. If you want to know more, and if you want to dig in deeper into some of the topics and some of the ideas that we have been talking about, why don't you join us at our Senior Pastors Roundtables. This year they're happening in Richmond, in Orlando, and also in Texas. So why don't you click one of the links below, sign up, join us, because we'd love to have you with us.